Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Mentor Asia Pacific. I'm Alvin Sanga, and we are celebrating the holidays here at Jessica's place. This is our family house. They are actually preparing for the holidays. But thanks for being on the show, Jessica.
Yeah.
And welcome home.
Thank you.
Right on. So, you want to share one thing that most people might not know about you?
Oh, yeah. This is a tough question to start off with. But I was thinking, that probably not a lot of people know I have a tattoo.
Okay.
I got it here on Guam. And it was when I was 18, and it's just like on my back, small, but it's of a plumeria.
Okay.
And I particularly got it because if you saw on your way into the house, there's all these plumeria trees across the road in SDA clinic. And when I was little, I used to go with my grandma to pick some of those plumerias to make leis, like when people were graduating and stuff. And my grandmother was an incredibly special person, and yeah, definitely a role model in my life. So I wanted to have a piece of her with me as I was starting school in the States, and also have a piece of Guam with me.
So you met at 18, your tattoo has a lot of meaning.
I was always overthinking things, probably. But yeah, I wanted it to be really intentional and stuff.
Okay, so let's kind of start from that piece. So you're about to leave Guam, and you have this new tattoo. What's your story from there until now? And let's go through a brief jump through.
Oh my. Yeah, it's been about 14 and a half years since leaving Guam. I graduated from the Academy of Our Lady. And when I left, I had this very intense dream that I think a lot of people who knew me in high school and even middle school probably were in some way privy to, but I wanted to be a magazine editor. I was like really big in journalism. I worked for PDN with the Vibe program and freelanced with different local publications, and I was like set. I had like a very clear goal. And I wound up, I think, large part because of that goal, like, you know, really thinking hard about where I wanted to be in the States for college, and I wound up going to Princeton University for my undergrad, and doing a lot of journalism internships on the summers. And, you know, was already thought I had all of the connections I needed to move to New York after graduation and get a job at a magazine, like hopefully Cosmo Girl, which is my dream publication. And then we both graduated during right before the financial crisis hit. So like 2008, August, you know, it hit the financial sector, it hit the media world, it had trickle-down effects throughout the globe. And one particularly personal effect for me is that 1 month later, Cosmo Girl, this magazine that I'd been dreaming of working for like my whole life, folded. It closed. And it was, you know, an isolated incident, but I think for me also very symbolic, because it was kind of this idea that you can work so hard for something your whole life, and then overnight it could be gone because of factors that are completely out of your control. So I think what it did though was it forced me to step back, and it forced me to think about like, well, why actually did I want to work for Cosmo Girl? Like, is it because teen magazines were like super sexy and in all of the you know, teen or the movies, the rom-coms we had growing up? Or was there something deeper? And I think for me it was having a platform to reach young people. Like, Cosmo Girl occupied a unique space because it talked to young girls as women, as in an empowering voice. It wasn't just about the celebrities and the Bonnie Glow lip gloss. It was about like empowerment. And I think that has been something that's been really important to me, and has also kind of been a red line through my career. So yeah, I think, you know, I had the kind of opportunity to step back from that dream and think about what I wanted to do next. This is 2008. And I decided to spend some time traveling, because there was nothing waiting for me in New York necessarily. And so I did like odd jobs in kind of like different places. I was a glorified babysitter, nanny, au pair in Paris, and I worked for this like web marketing firm in Buenos Aires, and I was like, yeah, like basically whatever I could do to make ends meet, I was doing in order to travel for a couple years. And while I was traveling, I was really inspired by a lot of the sustainable businesses that I saw popping up. So there are all of these really cool artisan groups and all these really cool like designers who were doing interesting things with like repurposed materials and that type of thing. So it really sparked this interest in social impact and sustainable business. And at the time I thought a little bit about going for a business degree, but I was like, you know what, I can just go work for a business, go work for a startup and have that be my education in business. So I worked for a startup in New York for a couple of years, trying to soak up as much as I could about what it meant to actually run a business. And then started my own small business. Nice. It was an artisan based social enterprise. And I worked with artisan groups in Cambodia on a line of accessories that I then retailed in the States. And then at a certain point I realized like, you know, the entrepreneurial spirit is very much alive, but there's also an opportunity to have impact in a big company. But I think in order to go that big company route, a business degree is necessary. So I wound up going to business school at NYU Stern in New York and studying social innovation and impact, supply chain management and strategy. And then went to work for PVH, which is a big apparel conglomerate. They own like a GPO, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, Izod, Speedo, a number of really big brands. And I joined their corporate social responsibility team. And I was, for a time, managing all of their communications and stakeholder engagement. And then a couple years ago, I think, that entrepreneurial spirit was still kicking. And so I decided to leave and embark on a new adventure. So my husband and I moved to Amsterdam from New York. And I started my own consultancy and have been doing work with organizations like Etsy, Tommy Hilfiger with old colleagues, a really exciting initiative called Fashion for Good that's like a sustainable fashion incubator in Amsterdam. And like working, I think, very much with the same idea of empowerment and social justice, but in an independent and also location independent way.
So remote control over
a long
everything.
story and a non-circuitous route, you might say. But we were talking earlier about how like so often paths aren't linear, and what you think you're gonna do when you leave Guam, if you leave Guam, or even at a certain age, like things can still change. And I think having the experience where like my dream disappeared so quickly, I'm also prepared that like, okay, this is what I'm doing now, but the world is changing so quickly, and like we just need to adapt and adjust and like.
Very true. Yeah. I'm gonna assume that there were some drawbacks and some struggles with all of those items. So, kind of either starting your business or even through business school, what were some of your struggles that you went through?
Definitely the financial crisis, like, and having that moment, I made it seem as if it was kind of like I'll just travel next. But like that was a period of time where I was really like, confused, like unsure, not sure what I wanted to do next, not sure what how the skills are transferable, scared. That was a period of time that was really difficult. I've had the chance to work with a lot of great people, but I've also had the chance to work with a lot of challenging people. And I think each of those instances has taught me something about management. It's very difficult to see at the time, of course, when you're working with someone that's more difficult, but like in retrospect, you see like, okay, they taught me
more than most.
If I hadn't had this experience that was really painful and really difficult, I wouldn't now have the approach that I do in working with others. And so I think working with people can be really difficult. Starting my business, I think, has been really exciting, but also the life of an entrepreneur can be really difficult.
Yes.
It can be isolating, there's constant uncertainty, there's like one day you might be feeling on top of the world because things went through, and then the next day you're kind of like, am I doing everything wrong? Like, where do I go from here? And it's just like, it's really tough at times. but also very, very rewarding. And I think on net, exactly where I need to be. But it's not without its drawbacks, which I'm sure you know.
For sure.
You're like,
sure.
yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm still just starting my journey as an entrepreneur, so we'll see where we go with there.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about Reconsidered. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So what's kind of your mission and your goal for Reconsidered?
So I started Reconsidered because I saw a gap in the social impact space. I thought there are a lot of organizations that are thinking about how they want to change internally, and you know they may be making like the sustainability teams within those companies might be able to make a strong business case for sustainability. So kind of like what I went back to business school to learn, like how can I rationally explain why people should do the right thing. And they may also be layering on like great communications expertise, so you can make it like marketing, put like marketing dollars behind it, make a video, like good copywriting, like that type of thing. But I felt like the change wasn't happening urgently enough. And I feel like a really strong unlock is actually bringing in insights from the science of behavior change, which is an emerging field just over the past 10, 20 years has really become more popularized and more mainstream. You see a lot of behavior change science and how traditional marketers work. You also see it in how people change habits or pursue health and wellness goals. But I didn't feel like it was being applied necessarily to the sustainability or sustainable business world. And so I try to bring that lens to client work. So I work, like I mentioned, with a bunch of global organizations as well as smaller ones. But I also have a newsletter that now has several thousand subscribers, mostly in the CSR world. We're starting to do workshop series, starting to write more and put more out on social media. And so the idea is really to try to both influence the decision makers within companies and equip them with all of the behavior science-based tools that they need to really drive change effectively. But also touch a bit like other people working in business who may not have sustainability in their job title but want to be a part of the change in some way, and figure out how to also equip them with the knowledge and information they need. So sort of a top and bottom down approach.
A lot of things with Reconsidered. So we're going to jump into a little bit of advice for yourself. So this one's a little fun one that I like to do is if you were to think 10 years back, so this puts you back at 2008.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you were going to give yourself advice, especially knowing the journey that you've made already, what advice would you be giving yourself?
I think one is to really invest in building a community of supportive people. People who are like-minded, people who may also be working on their own projects, who kind of share some of that hustle and entrepreneurial spirit, and really invest in that community. I think I'm let's say I have a lot of really great friends from here, a lot of really great friends from undergrad, a lot of great friends from business school, but in the past few years I've nurtured a group of people who now function a bit like my colleagues. They're people that are in the same sector, doing the same type of work that I can bounce ideas off of. And I think also I've learned a lot about what it means to really invest in friendships and in those relationships. Because I think, especially with the social media world, sometimes we can really be fooled about human connection, because if we like someone's photo, it's well, clearly they're getting the message that there's a connection here, but there's a lot more tenuous connections these days and a lot fewer. I think I'd like to be doing what I'm doing now. I think I've tried to be really, me and my husband together have tried to be really intentional about designing a life, and not just designing a career, but about thinking okay, location-wise, how do we want to do this? And so we're both independent workers, and so we have the freedom to be based wherever we want to be based. For me, that means also spending more time on Guam, coming back for longer periods, and also doing work here and doing projects like this UOG Sustainable Business Workshop we're putting on. And yeah, I think I'd like to maintain that sense of intentionality over the next 10 years, where I'm just like constantly thinking like, okay, am I being intentional about this? Like, am I, making the right steps, like based on my priorities, even if that means like saying no to business, to certain business, because it conflicts with like the vision of life and work-life balance that I have. That can be really tough as an entrepreneur too, because you just want to say yes to everything. That's but like sometimes you have to say no to something.
Right on, guys. We're gonna thank Jessica for being on the show today. Once again, this is Mentor Asia Pacific. Happy holidays, happy New Year. Signing out. Thank you very much.
Happy holidays.
Thanks guys for tuning into Mentor Asia Pacific. Once again, I'm out in Sangha. Check out all our social media, that's going to be linked down below. Stay tuned, more mentors are to come. We're going to be releasing a mentor every week. And please leave a comment down below for any mentors that you'd like to be featured on the channel, any business professional, entrepreneur, or anybody that you believe is inspiring and can provide to be a mentor for the youth of Guam. Until next time, thank you very much. Sangha out.